Hello and welcome to the Slow Ready Podcast, a casual drive into the music and culture of Goose. I'm Alex.
And I'm Mike.
And today we have a lighter and more fun episode than we normally do with our buddy Jeremiah Zimmer, who's here to talk about covers we'd like to see Goose try out. Jeremiah, how you doing, man?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
It's going to be an awesome time, but before we dive into all of that, let's just plug the socials like we always do. We're at Slow Ready Pod everywhere you are. Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, YouTube, we're there. So that's the best way to keep up with all of the Goose news that we come across and also just our posts about our show. And then last bit before we get into our main topic, we'd like to get into our first segment, Hot Tea, where we cover the Goose news and notes since our last episode. So first biggie here, we got the single release of Thatch, a little unexpectedly. Mike about jumped out of bed and hit his head on the ceiling of his room, I imagine. So any thoughts on Thatch as a single, guys? How about you go first, Mike?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you know me, you know how much I love Thatch. So it was a very big day for me. I'm very happy with how it came out so far for a studio cut. I really, particularly the drums and how they come through on the mix, especially if you're listening to it on headphones, sounds really terrific. And I think that they really nailed the essence of Rick's solo on that as well. So really can't wait to get into this album review here in a couple weeks and hear the rest of it.
How about you, Jeremiah? Any thoughts on the single?
I think for me, I feel like as you guys probably do as well, you watch so many live shows and you get used to the live versions of all these songs that most of which we've heard live for a year plus. So it always takes me a minute to like recalibrate my brain to hear something studio. I didn't like it the first time I heard it, and then I loved it the second and beyond. But I think, like I said, it was just that calibration, right? It was like, oh, they're gonna do this a little different, or this is gonna sound a little different. But I'm stoked for the entire album based on all the little uh all the releases that they've bled out since announcing the album, which apparently is the new way the music world works. But I'm here for it.
Yeah, we got literally a third of the album almost already up front, which is kind of wild when you think about it like that.
Right.
But I'm kind of with you there, Jeremiah. Like I'm not a studio cuts guy, so I always kind of struggle with it. But the first time I heard it, I was like, I'm not feeling it at all. And then put on a good pair of headphones and listened to it a couple more times, and it grew on me a little bit. So, that's the beauty of it. There's plenty of live versions out there already if you just want to listen to that, like me. So, but I think it's a solid studio effort. Let's see. Next up, we got Goose. They're going to be performing at Halloween in Live Oak, Florida, hanging out with their buddies, the String Cheese Incident, who are going to be playing 6 sets over that weekend. Goose will be playing 2 sets of their own. Some other big artists like Zed's Dead, the Disco Biscuits, Parcells, Joe Russo's Almost Dead, tons more. That seems like such a great festival. I've never had the opportunity to go, but I know the grounds are absolutely gorgeous. So any thoughts on maybe going to that festival or just the festival in general, guys?
I know I'm not gonna make it. I'd love to make it. I've been kind of peeping at their tour schedule, trying to figure out where I'm gonna take my shot. But with work and all, it's just been a little crazy. I haven't been able to find my window yet.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a miss for me. Not that I don't want to be there, because I think Goose does a particularly impressive job around Halloween. I know pretty much all jam bands are letting loose around Halloween, but I think Goose usually aces that assignment. So, and the lineup card is insane. I mean, there's so many artists there. It definitely looks like a great time, but I think for me, I'm still waiting on to see where the rest of these fall dates, and particularly like where Goosemas and things like that, are going to be falling before I pull any triggers on anything.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this lines up with the rest of the fall dates. We only have a few pieces of the puzzle, and maybe if there's a bunch of Florida dates, it might work to like make a trip out of it or something. We'll see. But speaking of festivals, we also found out that Goose will be playing the Friday night headlining spot at Harvest Festival, which we already knew they were playing at in Fredericton, New Brunswick. But nice to know what day it's going to be if you can only make one night or something like that for that festival. Not much to talk about there, so let's move on to the next topic. Goose also launched a second collaboration with Stay Cool NYC for a handful of like exclusive shirt and hoodie designs. At the time you're listening to this, it'll probably be the last day for pre-orders. So if you're interested in one of those, you should grab it. But they're all tie-dye and kind of like fairgrounds themed. Did you guys like any of those designs, or is it a pass?
I thought they were sweet, and I hope more bands do this. I think you're starting to see this in a lot of different industries, whether it's beer or soda or bands, right, or music, where you just take two things that have absolutely nothing to do with each other and crisscross and let someone kind of reinterpret the brand or how their merch vibes. So I'm not a huge tie-dye guy. I don't always wear black like this, but I thought it was cool, like a cool twist on what they typically do in their merch store.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I think that collabs are kind of like they've been the new thing in fashion for a while. I collect a lot of sneakers, and they've definitely been a big thing over there in that industry for a while. So I think it's really hip of Goose to do this, and they all looked really unique and specific to this design and wanting it to be kind of incorporated to the theme of Everything Must Go. So I thought it was a really cool release.
I'm a total sucker for tie-dye, opposite end of the spectrum from Jeremiah. So I had to physically control myself from hitting the buy button because I own way too much merch. And I was like, I can't own another tie-dye hoodie. I already own like 20 hoodies, I feel like. So I had to pass for my own well-being.
There's always room for one more tie-dye.
I don't know. You should see our
Maybe
house.
Maybe not. I haven't seen your closet.
Last bit of news here, real quick, is we have news that single day passes were made available for Viva El Gonzo if you can only make one night. Obviously, that's heartbreaking in itself to not be able to go to the whole thing, but nice that you have the option if you can only make one night work, which makes it more tempting for getting Mike to fly down for just Saturday or something. Come on, Mike. You can do it.
Do it.
Oh, man. It's tempting.
All right, so that really covers it. The only last little thing I had written down here was that it's not really news, but we just celebrated the anniversary of the 2024 Cap Run. So a lot of big anniversaries hit all at once, including Cotter's anniversary with the band, and a bunch of songs had their debut a year ago. So How It Ends, Hot Love and Lazy Poet, Salt. It was a pretty incredible run. So spin that album if you have a chance.
That's crazy that it's been a year already, isn't it? Like I know it doesn't feel like it was like a month ago, but it certainly feels it was not a year.
I mean, yeah, time flies.
How quickly he integrated into the band like that and was like so beloved from night one. To think that that was a year ago is it's pretty crazy. But
Yeah, that picture of like Cotter from behind with the Welcome Cotter banner is just like iconic, and it feels like it's only like a week old in my brain. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool to know he's a veteran with the band at this point.
right. Time flies when you're listening to Goose.
Hell yeah. So speaking of listening to Goose, we wanted to bring Jeremiah on for our flow down this week, the songs we'd like to see Goose cover, because when Mike and I decided to start the show, this was actually a topic we had put in like our initial list of ideas and just kind of shelved it, and it was collecting dust. And Jeremiah reached out and was like, hey guys, I'd love to see you guys do an episode like this. And I was like, oh yeah, wait a second, we thought of that a long time ago and just completely forgot about that idea. And Jeremiah is really active with messaging us and contributing to all of the things we ask contributors for and all of that, and he's just a great hang, so we wanted to have him on for this. So with that, I guess let's just start diving right in. Jeremiah, let's go with our guest first. What's the first song, top song, I would say, that you'd like to see Goose cover if you could pick any song in the universe?
We're starting on the top. We're moving down because I got a big one. I think it's a big one.
Oh, do whatever order you want. Actually,
No.
Really
I want to follow the lead. I just don't want to. I don't want to bury the lead and get you guys, sidetracked here. So this is kind of a fun discussion, amongst my friends who are Goose fans, who I usually go to the shows. I'm based out of the western suburbs of Chicago, so we're usually checking out the Salt Shed, Chicago shows, as well as Milwaukee when we can, if we're not traveling outside of that. Like Nashville, Florida, when I'm down there, I'll usually check the shows. I know you guys have that territory covered, but Anyway, the discussion amongst the friends is, that Goose does such an awesome job of picking the right covers and also surprising you with some, more obscure things that really, the entire world maybe isn't their oyster, but they, I think, do a better job than a lot of bands do at picking what those covers are. And the funny part of this, and maybe, through osmosis, friends who hang out with each other and absorb music maybe have similar mindsets. But one of the commonalities amongst my friends and I about who they should cover has, for some reason, involved Phil Collins. Yes, Phil Collins is an incredible musician, but like without initial discussion, I'd be like, "Hey, what do you think Goose should cover?" And my buddy will rip off like three songs, and one of them's Phil Collins, and it's not even the Phil Collins song that I have. I have two on my list, but it wasn't even that. And I was like, it's crazy because, and maybe it's like the what is it? It was like a Sleepless in Seattle picture of who's wearing that? Maybe both of them, or a couple of guys in the band had like sleeveless shirts on, sleeveless in Seattle when they were playing Washington,
Yep.
and
Yep.
they seem to like to play in that like 80s hit space, right? Where like late 80s, early 90s, Top Gun. So, yeah, I mean, the number one song, if I'm looking at just throwing it out there, is definitely In the Air Tonight. Um, because one, who doesn't love that song? It's got cool synths, it's got cool drums, it's got funky bass lines, it's got room for Rick to just go crazy on a solo. But like, I feel like everyone and their mom knows what that song sounds like and freaks out anytime it comes on in a public space, or you're riding in a car and you're like just waiting for that drum breakdown, right? Like exactly what time it's at. But again, I don't want to focus too much on that one song because Phil Collins was the idea, right? Like Take Me Home. And I know we're not like sampling through the songs for people to hear on this episode right now, but like there are certain elements of these Phil Collins songs, or a good chunk of his catalog, that seem to have something for everybody in the band. For all the things that Goose does well on the stage or with their instruments, like I don't know, I'm not coming out and saying Rick sounds like Phil or vice versa, but like for whatever reason, it even seems like they're in a similar range, that he could sing whatever Phil Collins is singing and it works. So I have a bunch of others that maybe fit partially or entirely in those
Yeah.
buckets, but I'm starting at maybe number one, number two, In the Air Tonight, Take Me Home.
I was gonna let Mike go next, but I can't now after you said that because literally I completely agree with you. And the first song on my list is That's All by Genesis. Because
Amazing.
it's like I think Rick could nail like that like harsh but dramatic, theatrical almost feel Phil Collins has to his voice. And that song, like so many earworm songs involve Phil Collins in whatever capacity, whatever band he was in.
Yep.
It's just terrific stuff. And yeah, that's all. I put that on for my wife when this episode was uh, ringing around in our heads. And I was like, what do you think about this one? And she's like, that is outstanding. And now she's been singing it for 2 weeks straight, just like nonstop
Nice.
around the house.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So Phil Collins, I'll take any covers. It's amazing we haven't gotten one yet with all the Peter Gabriel we've seen so
Right.
far from Goose.
And full disclosure, Alex and I did not talk about this before this recording. This is completely
Oh,
blind. I have no idea what's on your guys' list.
Yeah, we went blind just for moments like this, which was just like you just blew my mind there, Jeremiah. So,
Well, like I said, that legit happened with my friends and I. So, maybe we're on to something. We need to start a petition on petition.org that Goose actually listens to us and starts in on the Phil Collins catalog.
So Mike, do you have a Phil Collins song, or what's number one on your list there, Ben?
No, but I do. I love that he's on the list. I totally agree with everything you both said. I think it's a really great fit, and I think that I kind of looked at it the same way. I was mainly looking for songs that like afford every member of the band a chance to like show off or at least take apart. And then I also thought a lot about what Rick has said in an interview where they try and get that perfect balance of maybe it's a little bit corny, but it's also still awesome and great. And so I feel like a lot of my choices were kind of right down that alley. And so I don't know if this is my number one choice, but I know it was really important for me to get it on this list. But I'm going to go with Hungry Like the Wolf by Duran Duran. I just think
Nice.
that it would be so much
Nice.
fun. And if they did want to jam it out, they wouldn't have to. It'd be fun, like just on its own standalone. But if they did want to jam it out, I feel like it could have a similar role to play as like Running Up That Hill did in 2024 with a lot of that electronic mass that they could, push out and expand.
That absolutely. And Jeremiah said it earlier, and that was a common thread in a lot of my notes, and I imagine your notes too, Mike, is that the 80s seems to be like the perfect soundscape for Goose to explore, and like they've almost like brought back that feel in a lot of ways in the ways they jam. And so I think that's a terrific pick. I had that on my short list, and actually that was one of the few cuts I make because I was like, I know someone else is going to pick this. So great choice. Totally agree. What do you got next, Jeremiah? What's up next? Let's see if we can get some good variety here.
Right on. So also in that late 80s bucket, this one fits maybe less of the vibe they typically go for, but still very much plays in that late 80s, early 90s thing. But like, I think people would lose their minds. Take My Breath Away, like from the Top Gun soundtrack by Berlin.
Oh yeah.
I think that would catch a lot of people by surprise.
I would die. That would be so incredible.
Right? Like I'd go home immediately and watch that movie. But yeah, there's something about that song where I was like, "Yep, 80s again. Here we go. Cut off sleeves. Let's go."
I mean, you say take me by surprise, but I don't think there's like anything that Goose could play that would like be an absolute mind-blowing surprise with just how many they've already done at this point, especially based off of movies and stuff like that. It would just be incredible though.
So not to diverge here, but they did take me by surprise, and it's a little personal because I'm gonna paraphrase my wife here. Like she was a big fan of the Goofy movie growing up, and we were actually at Disney when they were playing that New Year's show. We did New Year's Eve to New Year's Day at Disney, and when we came home that night, I just pulled up setlist .fm and I looked at the set list because I couldn't watch the show live, and I was like, "Oh my God, miss, they played Eye to Eye." Because that's like her favorite
Yeah.
song, right? So like it pops on like the Disney Sirius XM channel and she's like, "Yeah." And she has very specific thoughts on there being like a 4-year window of like people of a certain age that would even know what that song is, let alone love on that song. Yeah. And so like we came home and I was like freaking out. So I pulled it up and I backed the stream up on Nugs and I was like, we got to listen to this. And it was amazing. And then I think they played it again after that. So, then when I started doing this like songs Goose should cover playlist thing on my own, that almost became its own bucket. I'm like, well, these guys either really loved Goofy or they just love Disney. And so then I kind of went down that road and I was like, that also led me to Phil Collins because Phil Collins did so much,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So anyway,
Did a lot of Tarzan stuff.
yeah, but Eye to Eye caught me by complete surprise. I would have never guessed that Goose would have covered that song, but I love that they did.
Oh, that's like my number one chaser cover because they had done it. Oh gosh, it was 2019, and then never played it again until that New Year's show. It was like a 6-year gap or something, five and a half, whatever it was. So let's bring it back, Goose. Come on, you didn't play it this winter. So what do you got next year, Mike? What's your next cover of choice?
I'm just going to throw this in here just because I feel like there's a decent chance maybe one of you has this, and so I want to get it out before someone steals it from me. But I'm going to go with Reeling in the Years by Steely Dan. It just feels like too much
Ooh,
of a slam dunk.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of harmonies, great sort of shuffle groove in that jazz rock vibe, and it's universally regarded as one of the greatest guitar solos ever recorded. And then plus it feels like the entire jam community loves Steely Dan anyway, so I just feel like it's a real obvious slam dunk here.
that's an amazing call.
Absolute slam dunk, and Steely Dan is an artist they could explore a ton of the catalog with. I think it's a perfect fit for Goose. That's a great choice, Mike. I actually didn't have that on my list, but I did have Steely Dan on here.
I'm kind of surprised, but I'm grateful.
Well, when I looked at my playlist and like we had talked about maybe picking 8 to 10 of these, and I already had 40, I just kind of like restricted myself.
Maybe chill.
Just chill out a little bit. Yeah, this was so much fun though, and there's really, like we said up at the top, like it's hard to make a bad choice. And honestly, we're gonna miss a lot of songs. I'm sure people are gonna be like, "You guys didn't pick this one. Oh my gosh!" But we'll probably have to do a part 2, part 3, part 4 of this.
Well, we didn't consult with each other. Yeah, we're going over 6 decades of music with no consultation with each other, so it's going to be random.
It's gonna be completely random. And let's see. I don't know what direction to go next, because I could go the like cheesy but would be amazing route, like we talked about here just a second ago, or just something completely out of left field.
Let's do that. Let's do the former.
The cheesy but amazing. All right, so I think that this song has been consistently ranked as like one of the great earworms of the 80s, and also is like one of the worst songs of the 80s, depending on how you ask. And I think that if Goose played We Built This City by Starship, that the entire crowd would lose their minds. Like, it's just so badly awesome. It's the most 80s sounding song ever, and you get a little bit of everything. You could have all the different guys, like, even reading off the news headlines that come in at the end of the song. Just like imagine like Cotter's back there like ripping off like a random news headline. You got that 80s synth all over the place, the great bass shots that Trevor would nail, and just a lot of room for jamming and exploration from Rick too. So I just think it'd be really fun, and yeah, a cheese fest.
I love it. I'm actually writing down the songs you guys are saying because I'm gonna add them to my playlist, and then I'm gonna come back to you guys and be like, hell yes.
So say, I'm pretty sure at one point GQ ranked that as like the worst song ever written, but I just think
so good though.
Outstanding. It's yeah.
Sometimes it's so bad it's good.
That's what I mean. So what do we got next, Jeremiah?
Meatloaf. I'd do anything for love.
Let's go.
That's a great one.
That's a great pick.
Amazing.
No, I actually think for as much as people like are like Meatloaf, it's a funny name. He's a big dude. He was in Fight Club, right? But like he's a really good singer, right? Like there's a reason. And he's probably got 2 or 3 songs that I think that they would rip hard. But I also think that's maybe one of his most well-knowns. And again, early 90s, late 80s, right? I don't even know what it would sound like, but I heard that it came up in my shuffle. And I was like, hell yes, add to the playlist. Bring it back.
That would make so many people happy. Like so many people would.
It would. My mom would like that. They should do that for my mom. She was a big Meatloaf fan.
Everyone send a message to the band. We got to do it for Jeremiah's mom. Oh, gosh. All right, Mike, you take it in any direction you want from here, because all of these are just outstanding so far. What do you got next?
Yeah, I know. Every time you guys pick a song, it's making me want to go like 4 different directions. So I'm just like really bouncing all over the place. I'm gonna go with another cheesy one though, because it seems like we're trending in that direction. So, my girlfriend gave me this one, and I just, after listening to it, I absolutely think it just works so perfectly. But Dreamweaver by Gary Wright. Cool, chill groove and a dramatic opening, which Goose loves dramatic openings. I'm always saying that. Kind of corny message and lyrics, which they also love. Feels like it wouldn't be like too different than like filling the same vibe like the Pina Colada song sometimes does in an encore. And strong bass line and lots of keys. So I just think that'd be a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you'd have a lot of fun, and it's very, very danceable, and they could really make it their own. There's a lot of flexibility there too, which is just great.
Truly.
I love that.
You said something like, I think what you call dramatic, I maybe call spatial when we're talking about pianos and keys, and they do a lot of this in transitions. I think maybe the most well-known one is leading into Dripfield, but we saw it in the Halloween show with the Stranger Things intro. And I think that's one of the things that like started grabbing me about potential covers first, like maybe like set the 80s, 90s cheesy, but also popular, awesome songs aside, is, I would hear a song on shuffle or whatever. And like that like almost, it's like a droning keys type thing that you hear in certain songs that I'm like, oh, well, Peter would totally do that. Right. And then all of a sudden, some of those other things you mentioned, whether you're cherry picking artists or guys in the band, and how they would react to it or how they'd interpret it, and like that all kind of layers on top of it. Um, but I love that, and I think you can find some really obscure songs with those with that feel in it, that all of a sudden sounds like a song Goose should cover because it sounds like something Peter would play on those keys that isn't just like straight piano. So I have examples. I don't want to
Totally.
like diverge into a bunch of examples of that, but it's like that was an element that really grabbed me first and was like, oh, Goose should cover this because it already sounds like Peter. And then it would be like, oh my God, this sounds actually like Cotter. And oh, well, Trevor would be in there too. That's cool. And then before you know it, it's on the playlist. And then you're active. Then I
Yeah.
was actively looking for songs in my shuffles that would sound like something. And then, you go back and listen to it later and you kind of like pare it down or you play it for someone else. And, like Alex's wife was like, hell yeah. My kids were like, absolutely not. And then so like I'll go back in and listen to it again and be like, yeah, but they should, and here's why. And then it becomes an absolute debate.
Yeah.
But
Oh
yeah, no,
yes.
there's just so many buckets. That's what I love about this band and about all these songs. Like these are songs that I'd listen to whether I was like day drinking or cleaning the garage or hanging out with friends or at a show. Like very distinct activities, right? But
Yeah.
like so applicable in every one of them.
Oh my gosh, that is so well and like astutely said. I don't think I could say it better myself. I mean, Mike is sitting back here looking like his mind's blown by that.
So I'm gonna let me drop an obscure one on you, and again, I think it would be
Yeah.
awesome if like you guys had the rights to play 10 seconds of this song on the podcast, and then people could be like, yeah. But I guess homework would be find the song "Little Bird" by Annie Lennox if you don't know it, and
Okay.
and tell me I'm wrong about Peter on the keys.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that one.
But also, I'm of the side of Goose fans that would love to see Goose release like a DJ album because I'm really into uh DJ Marv Menthal's, and like anytime they skew a little techno, even in a transition, I'm like, I'm hell yang on my side. So anyway, this song starts with a decent amount of synth, and then it doesn't get dancey, but like then all of a sudden you're like, yep, there's Cotter. Like he's kick drumming into this song, and before you know it, you're like, no one knows. I mean, a lot of people probably like Annie Lennox. She's very popular in her day, but like it's not a song you would hear on the radio or like even amongst some of the ones we've listed where you're like, oh yeah, I definitely hear that, or I've listened to it since I was 5 years old. But definitely one of those songs are a good example that has kind of all of these elements or all of these like prerequisites we're talking about.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with that one, but as soon as I finish editing this episode, that'll be right on my to-do list because I can't wait to hear it now.
Part two,
Yeah.
we'll follow up. We'll follow up on the list and be like, grade the list.
We'll report back. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to do my homework on that too. I'm not familiar. So that'll be a fun listen. That's a fun part of this exercise because literally you could go anywhere. There's songs on here that I thought were like too obscure to even bring up because like there's like 8 people I know who've listened to this ever. So
but we're all taking notes, and the next time you do
Yeah.
it, or if we're talking as a group, like, and we're gonna be better Goose fans and better music fans for it.
yeah. Oh yeah. So I think we're moving away from the cheese a little bit. So I'm gonna.
Let's go back to the cheese.
Well, no, I'm gonna stay away from it real quick here
Okay.
because you
Okay.
talked about the interplay between the guys in the band and like this is when I envisioned that could really let Peter and Rick both shine vocally if it was played right, and they'd obviously have to rework it a little bit to make it their own. But I was listening to some of my favorite classic songs, and White Room by Cream came on, and it would be really fun
Nice.
to hear like the verses by Rick, and then the more like falsetto chorus by Peter, and them trading off, and then there's tons of room to rip off where Clapton already ripped on the main track. Like you could just see Rick just ripping off a 13-minute long solo or something like that, and just letting the whole band just have a blast to close this thing out. So I just thought it'd be really, really fun, and wanted to get something in there from the 60s.
It's a great choice. I love that.
There's a topic we haven't brought up, and I think that might be one of them like of an older era, but like there was definitely some ideas that felt like quote unquote commercially a good idea, but maybe not a song that you would or that they would need to cover from start to finish, right? Like low hanging fruit here. Tease a Taylor Swift song, right? Maybe you're not making all the Goose fans the happiest in the world, but if the Taylor Swift fan, if they do a good job of this tease, and all of a sudden Taylor Swift fans who've never heard of Goose before ever, all of a sudden catch wind that maybe he's uh Rick is, working lyrics and like maybe a melody into a jam. That could be awesome. Or maybe less annoying for some Goose fans, and I like Take My Breath by The Weekend, right? Like you wouldn't he
Okay,
wouldn't
yeah.
need to do that a full song from start to finish there, but like man, that would work really well in the middle of a jam. Um, in the same way that for any Star Wars fan, when they oh man, now of course we're recording and it's escaping me. What is the Duel of the Fates? There it is. So
Duel of
when
Fate.
when he
Yeah.
starts, yeah, when he starts working that into it, I hear it every single time now, and I'll be like, "Hey, did you hear that?" To my little guy in the back seat, and he'll be like, "Yeah, this is Star Wars, right? It was Star Wars." He's also a Goose fan, but he is a full time Star Wars fan. So
Raising
anyway,
them
that
right.
that that like flipped this whole thing on its head for me because most of the songs that I have on my list were songs I'd love to see them cover from start to finish. And then all of a sudden I was like, yeah, but what if they just wanted to like catch somebody else's attention? Just like do something cool, steal a cool riff, steal a cool bridge, insert it into the middle of Animal, right? Or whatever, and then come back into the song. I don't know. I thought that could be a lot of fun. Doesn't have to be Taylor Swift.
Well, you mentioned Taylor. We actually wanted to. Mike and I talked about this. Is the one thing we did talk about before the episode. Was like, let's see if we can find some Taylor Swift because we had multiple guests come on here and say that they were big Swifties, and we wanted to represent a little bit. So I consulted my stepdaughter Chloe a little bit and came up with a few ideas. The low hanging fruit obviously was "Shake It Off." That'd be just a fun dance
Nice.
party. Or if you want another big hit that's maybe a little lesser known but still could really fit the Goose aesthetic, "Karma" would be good. And then if you're going for a deep, deep cut, "The Last Great American Dynasty" would be really
Ooh,
cool. But
that's
like,
a good song.
we also know a lot of T Swizzle in this house because
I
I
like
have a
it. I
13-year-old here.
respect that. She rules.
Um, and then keeping it in the pop genre, just gonna rattle these off real quick. Uh, I mean, how fun would it be to hear "Hot to Go" by Chapel Roan at a
Yes.
show like that? Anyone who says they don't like that song is lying to themselves. I think because that song is just so smile inducing.
That should be a Goose Miss song. I feel like that deserves a bingo ball, I think.
Yeah,
Something.
it's like modern Madonna vibes. Like it's
Yeah.
just so fun. Mike's giving me the side eye.
No side eye. Just looking at my notes.
Oh, all right. That's a lot of talking by me, though. Mike, what do you got next? Take it in any direction you want, because
Yeah, I was trying to figure out where the hell I go from here because we've had a lot of interesting tangents. But I kind of struggled with finding modern examples. I kind of out on most modern pop music over the last 15, 20 years. But I'm just going to rattle off the few modern songs that I did come prepared with here. So I definitely feel like they could absolutely kill pretty much any song by MGMT. But I just put down quickly the three songs that were the biggest hits for that band: Kids, Time to Pretend, and Electric Feel. I feel like Goose would just absolutely murder all of those songs. Um, and then also Take Me Out by Franz Ferdinand. I feel like it's just kind of like a fun
Nice.
throwaway song, but needed to have a couple modern picks here, but it's just got a ton of energy. And I feel like it could be either on its own, just a quick in and out, or like Jeremiah was saying, kind of segue in or out of something else. But if they did want to jam out that particular song, I feel like it offer up like endless proggy type 2 possibilities, which could be a lot of fun as well.
For whatever reason, I feel like Franz Ferdinand and Modest Mouse are always like in the same cloud of thought for me. I think, which when you said that, it made me think of Float On, which would also be an awesome
hmm
like adjacent cover to that. And again, maybe that's just my own brain, like pairing two bands for no reason other than I listen to them both at the same time of my life. But I don't know, for whatever reason, those two bands are interchangeable to me, and so are some of their songs. That's a great call, though.
I can definitely hear that.
Yeah, and you're hitting the indie side of that indie groove description Goose gives himself. So, give a little love to that side of the Goose
Yeah.
fandom.
But how cool, and what does that say about like their range, right? Like even in their covers, they're picking songs that, nobody's ever heard of, all the way to like chart-topping hits and then over to Disney, like whether it's quirky or not, or it's a song you've listened to 100 times, it's like that's pretty cool. That's maybe an underappreciated element of the band is like how versatile they are and how amazing they are at picking the right songs for that band for themselves.
I don't think they have any covers that really are like big misses to the majority of the fan base, which is just outstanding. Like we've seen so many other jam bands have these covers that people are like groaning and like going to the bathroom in mass. I feel like whenever they're played, and it just doesn't happen with Goose, and at least in my experience.
Do you guys have a like a favorite cover that they already do?
Oof.
Sorry, I didn't give you any warning that I was going to ask you. I just sprung it on you.
It's hard to not go with Fish in the Sea for me, but I need to think on that a little more. That just immediately comes to mind is when I always
That's a
love.
good one.
Yeah, I feel like that question's almost as hard as when someone asks me like, "What's your favorite Goose song?" It's like I can give you a top 5, maybe. Like, today maybe
Yeah.
AUATC. I've been listening to that all this morning, so maybe that would be my answer today. But I can almost guarantee if you ask me tomorrow, it'll be a different cover.
I'm with you on that. And in fact, we did that exercise to our friend group. It was like do a top 10, and I was like, I can't. I'll give you top
It's
17. How about that?
yeah, it's like picking favorite kids.
Right. When like we'll be in the car and like my top 3 or top 5 or whatever will come on again in the shuffle or on a Nugs show or whatever. I'll be like, this is my number 2 song, kids, and they're like, whatever. Can you put something else on? I would to answer my own question though, I would go What's Up for Non-Blondes, but I think that like, I mean, that song is like the best song of the '90s. That is more on the pop chart hits and less on the like Meatloaf side. Um, but there's something special too about that Red Rocks show, and that's when I first heard them do it. So I'm not well versed enough on the
Mhm.
like pre that on whether or not they played that song, but when I heard that song kick in and it was like the camera behind Rick's head, like looking at the crowd going crazy. It made an impression on me. So, and the song just rules.
Oh, that's a great cover. And speaking of the great songs of the '90s, do you have any '90s songs you want to highlight, Jeremiah, on your list that you still haven't gotten to?
Um, was Two Tickets to Paradise '90s or was that '80s? I don't even know. Hang on, let me look. No, that was '70s. Oh my God. Okay, well, Eddie Money, Two Tickets to Paradise.
Great song though.
Great song. Thank you. No, most of my stuff was either like very current, and maybe in that like commercially a good idea bucket, or like '80s, '90s. Um, I had Cold Heart by Elton John, but I suppose you could go Dua Lipa remix as well, but I don't, the one I'm looking at is the remix, and I don't know when Elton John released Cold Heart. Pyro by Kings of Leon, but that wasn't '90s, that was the early aughts, whatever that means. Some Ed Sheeran. I did put We're All in This Together by High School Musical to stack onto the Disney piece of Eye to Eye that I brought up earlier. But I was like, this doesn't necessarily musically fit, but man, it sounds like something they'd pull out of nowhere and just spring it on people and be like, surprise, High School Musical.
Uh, Maybe. Yeah, I don't know if that's so much of their age group when I think about it, because I feel like that was
That was
like
2006, whereas I think Goofy Movie was like 92, 94. I don't know.
Goofy Movie was '95 because it just celebrated 30 years this year. So I only know that because of our post we just did.
That is amazing. That is amazing knowledge right there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And we're talking so much about a Goofy movie. How have we not brought up they should cover Stand Out from that movie too? The first song that they do.
Nice.
Tevin Coleman is incredible. But yes. Yeah, give us all of Disney. I agree. I have not watched those High School Musical movies myself, but I know they're well loved. And I'm sure there's a ton of earworms in there too, if they were as popular as they were.
Those are all those are, I mean, Ed Sheeran, Bieber, like pick one. Disney, anything that they're excited about, I think would be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
This is the part of the podcast recording where you guys are like, he needs to stop picking obscure songs and he needs to start answering the question.
No, they do love Disney though, so like anything's possible.
Yeah. I mean, for all we know, they're gonna bust out like a Mulan song or something next show. Like you don't know with these guys, so there's no.
If they hit "Be a Man," I'm gonna lose my mind.
That would be amazing. Is there a way? So have you guys ever like sent suggestions to the band and seen like if you get a just even like take the best 2 or 3 you guys got and just be like, hey, you guys should play this, or like just like Instagram it at them and see what happens?
I can't say we have, but maybe we'll just send them this episode.
We should.
Yeah, send them a link to this episode. Just see what they think. You can just laugh at us if you want to.
Yeah, laugh at it if you want, but I think this would make you.
There's some good ones.
A lot of money. Go buy the rights to this song. Quick, add it to your new album.
So let's get back on the rails a little bit, here.
Sorry.
Any covers you want to highlight here, Mike? They're still on your list.
I mean, do you want me to like rapid fire them? Like I've still got a bunch left, but I mean, I can handle it however you want.
However you want to do it, man. There's really no rules here. This episode is unhinged in the best kind of way.
All right. Well, like, so yeah, these are even two that I would put together, but I know I want to at least talk about these two, so I'm going to throw them out here back to back. But Moving in Stereo by the Cars, I really, really, really
nice.
think that may be actually my number one pick from the whole list. Every time I listened to it, it got better as a choice for them, because it's kind of same as like Hungry Like the Wolf, where you could get some of those Stranger Things synth vibes from Halloween, but it's also got a slightly like ominous tone always kind of lurking in the background of that song that could really lead to some dark type 2 jams. And then I also really wanted to shout out, my dad threw this to me late in the week, but he gave me Baba O'Reilly by The Who, sometimes known as Teenage Wasteland by other people, but it has a really epic opening, lots of great synth in there, and I feel like it would not only give the show a lot of energy, but if they did want to jam it out, it has endless jam possibilities to where they'd want to take it. I feel like both those two would be really solid.
We know they can absolutely rock a Who cover, so, and their light show, Getty, is almost like an homage to like everything the Who brought to the light game, back in the day. So I love that pick.
Truly,
that's outstanding.
And Moving in Stereo is by far, I mean, the Cars have so many good songs.
Yeah.
Like maybe one of the best greatest hits albums of any band, but like that's been a standout for a long, long time. That would be so cool to hear.
Yeah, I have that on vinyl, their greatest hits.
Nice.
And you said that was at your number one, right?
I think that
overall,
after going through it, Moving in Stereo is my overall number one. I cannot imagine how many cool things they could do with that.
Yeah, that would just be absolutely outstanding. Like, that's probably my favorite song by the Cars.
And that might you might have just crushed Phil Collins on my list, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
that's actually a really good call. I love Phil Collins.
Oh,
well,
gosh.
you guys could get a sponsor, right, to get a banner behind a plane, and we could put all the songs we want them to hear on a big old banner, and you could just fly around wherever they're playing. Yeah, Phil Collins and the Cars, yo, play it.
So I'm wearing my New York Giants hat. We can get the plane that's flying around the Giants stadium to fire the coach and fire the GM all year last year. We can just get them to put Slow Ready podcast material on there too.
Yes. I like it.
Yeah. Great idea.
So I've got just the most eclectic mix of songs left on my list. I'm not gonna be able to get to them all, but one thing I think that Goose does really well is even if it's a song with a woman lead singing, they just can like manipulate the song and make it fit their sound, and even if it's a more quote unquote masculine sound to it, it just still works. And one song that I was listening to and I was like, man, they could really rework this because the vocals are just so soulful and Rick would just crush it, was You're So Vain by Carly Simon. And
Nice.
it would really, really be fun to hear how Rick would just like work that style into it. And there's a lot of room for Peter and Rick to really shine with the way the keys and guitar trade off. And then there's also just a cool little like bass lick intro for Trevor to just kind of like rip, and they could jam off of that even for a little while. So I just thought it was really fun listening to some of my favorite songs of all time, and that was like they could really make this one work and be unique.
A plus, man. I love that pick.
Same.
I was not thinking of that.
No, it's Stevie Nicks too. I wasn't thinking of it either. I feel like similar vibes, right? Where she's got that realness, that honesty, but sometimes it like swerves into like trippy depression,
Yeah.
where it fits really well in
Yeah.
Evil Jams, right? More Evil Jams.
100%.
Well, you said Evil Jams, and one song where I actually thought of that when I was thinking of this song because I was like, what would be the hardest song to go dark on and would still be fun for Goose to cover? And I came up with Down Under by Men at Work.
Oh, hell
Because
yeah.
I think that Rick's voice would actually work really well on this to kind of match the timbre and feel of Colin Hayes' voice. I
Yeah.
think they could do a lot of Colin Hayes stuff, honestly. But it'd just be a really fun cover. Obviously, they do like Electric Avenue and stuff like that, and this would just completely fit that vibe. And if they were found a way to make this song dark, that would be like top 5 accomplishments all time of Goose jamming, in my opinion.
Have you heard the acoustic version of that song that he released like 20 years ago?
Oh yeah,
Because
I love that album. That's one of my favorite
it's
albums to
good.
play along to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good call, man. It makes me wonder why this isn't coming up on my shuffle more often. I'm looking at it right now.
I'm just saying.
Like, come on.
It would fit acoustic, you know? You said the acoustic version's outstanding. Acoustic would be terrific.
Yeah.
I could gush on the Colin Hay solo album all day, but you got anything else, Jeremiah, of just like fun covers before we get into the more like nuanced, funny or Goose Miss themed covers?
You know, maybe just like not a specific song, but maybe a vibe. I'd love to hear them touch on something. Not like 90s country, not even maybe like modern country, but something obscure. Like even take like a female country artist from today or recently and pluck something from there just to maybe that's more of like me just appreciating their range, and less having a specific answer to your question, which I apologize for. Um, but that is something that as I was kind of going through this exercise, even though I was like standing there acknowledging that there were a bunch of buckets, how you would classify these songs, that was a bucket that I didn't have or even see coming. But you somewhere in that like that southern rock, that grungy southern country, even like maybe on a more commercial example would be Chris Stapleton. But he kind of leans into that a little bit. Sometimes I think that would be fun to hear. But I went through most of my list of like existing examples here, so I'm good until
Well,
until the next time we talk, right? And then I'm gonna be like, I got 18 more, guys.
well, we know that that's well in the band's range, so I don't think that's a bad call. Like Big Modern came out of nowhere, and people are like
Yeah,
putting that over Ford F-150 commercials as a meme, and it works. So like, anything's possible.
I did try like late 90s. I was a big Soul Coughing fan, so I was trying to like Goose aside because covers can't be Goose songs, but like I was trying to avoid uh favorite bands and favorite songs and just try to look at like song first. So I don't even have an example of like a Soul Coughing song, but like now they're touring and I think that's cool. And it would be fun to kind of go through their catalog and see if there's something that even makes sense. Although the few examples that I've heard, again, well on shuffle, you guys are probably like, all this guy does is shuffle through his library. They're almost too weird for Goose, right? Like they're almost like the lyrics don't even really work, and then like the bass is up and down, and then but that's kind of why I was trying to avoid that. Like if Phil Collins was my favorite, everything would make sense.
No, that makes total sense. I tried to do that a little bit to myself, and then I still found myself gravitating towards like the old classic rock artists that I just adore. It's just too hard to not gravitate towards that. Anything else on your like more quote unquote serious covers list there, Mike, before we move on? Because we could go for hours on this thing.
Yeah, I'm just going to hit my leftovers here right in succession that I wanted to make sure I shouted out. I'm not going to give a whole lot of description here. But I Shall Be Released by the band. Obviously, they love covering the band. We love them covering the band. I want them to add that song to the list. Hold the Line by Toto. I feel like is another great piano-driven song with great harmonies that they could absolutely crush. Money for Nothing, just because I want to hear it segue into Big Modern by Dire Straits. Power of Love by Huey Lewis and the News was another one that I just felt like was kind of tailor-made for them. And then these three all go together, but one Old Fashioned Love Song, Mama Told Me Not to Come, one, and Joy to the World by Three Dog Night. All four of those I think would be excellent choices as well. And last but not least, Pictures of You by The Cure. That's my rapid fire edition.
Outstanding. And how we have no overlap on any of those is just
good stuff, man.
Like that's just it's all good stuff. Oh gosh, I'm gonna rapid fire my list here too, because I said
go for it, and then we can go into the silly ones.
And I'm not gonna go through my silly ones yet, but I'll rapid fire the more quote unquote serious ones, even though they're all kind of like cheesy 80s. I thought Foreplay Long Time by Boston would be really, really fun, especially the intro. Just like if they had done that instead of like Sirius last year at Goose Miss, like that would have worked terrific for me, although Sirius was outstanding. Your Love by The Outfield, another 80s cheesy banger, be great. Rich Girl, Hall & Oates, great stuff. I thought Life in the Fast Lane by the Eagles would be a really fun one for actually Peter to sing and just let Rick and Trev pop off. And then last best cheesy song they could have done would be The Final Countdown by Europe. How they've not done this yet. And had someone dressed as Job from Arrested Development dancing around would just be
amazing.
One last one. Sorry. Would be Break My Stride by Matthew Wilder, because that just seems like it's the aesthetic of the band. So not as good as Final Countdown, but I missed that one on the list.
Dude, I can't believe I missed Your Love by The Outfield. That is one of the greatest songs of all time, and it's in that era, and I have a personal connection to it. Amazing. Amazing call.
Yeah.
Good job, man.
So real quick, we'll move on to like quote unquote gimmicky or funny songs. Did you all have any picks for this, for like what could fit like a themed show or just would be something funny? Because the guys tend to like to do a really funny song here and there.
Can I go back to something I already said? Or does it have to be new?
By all means.
I mean, I guess we're all in this together. High School Musical is pretty gimmicky. Again, like you hammer that Disney connection. Really the same intent as like teasing a Taylor Swift song, right? Like you're reaching a wider audience of maybe not serious Goose fans, but causes people to pay attention, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, that works in a way I never expected it to work.
Definitely.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with those songs, but like anything Disney Channel I feel like would work, because it's all kind of from the same thread as something like Eye to Eye.
Yep.
Great pop stuff that can just be expanded on, I'm sure. What do you got, Mike? Something funny or cheesy or themed?
Yeah, I've got a few. So Everything Is Awesome from the Lego Movie.
Yes.
Walk Hard from Walk Hard. And anything from the Spinal Tap soundtrack, but especially Give Me Some Money. Those were the three that immediately jumped out to me.
Oh gosh, especially with all the Spinal Tap connections we've been seeing lately with all the
Yeah, exactly.
trauma, that would just work way too well. Oh my gosh, that is I terrific, terrific stuff. Uh, I'm not gonna add too much. I'm not gonna add too much here because I got a long list and no one wants to hear it. But the one song
We
I
want to
thought
hear
would be
it.
We want to hear at least a few.
well, yeah, I was gonna say the one song I think would just be absolutely hysterical and actually like would fit the soundscape really great, but might be a little too rated R for what Goose normally does. Would be "The Bad Touch" by Bloodhound Gang.
Yes.
And Trevor singing it. And Trevor singing it
Amazing.
would be the greatest thing I've ever seen Goose do.
I didn't even
It just
consider that approach. Especially like, and I feel like
it's
we
got the
should.
electronic
Yeah.
components. It's got the earworm chorus, and people would just be dying laughing and also dancing at the same time. I just think it'd be so fun.
It reminds me of when I saw a video of the Dr. Evil rap that they did. I was
Yeah.
like, wow, he's actually rapping this. They're still going. He's still doing it.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of the feel of like the Ghostbusters rap they do, the Dr. Evil rap. So I think it would fit that vein, but it's a little more rated R.
Yeah.
And honestly, I just want to hear someone sing the Waffle House line at least once in my life. That's really all I want.
I'm in for that.
The other one I had, and this would make my stepdaughter very happy, she loves this song, was I was thinking like, what if they did prom themed Goose Miss 1 Year or something, and DJ Marv Menthols comes up for the encore and says, "There's one song after this, gotta go find a dancing partner," and then Goose just rips off a cover of "Kiss Me" by Sixpence None the
None the richer. None the richer.
yeah,
Yeah.
Sixpence None the Richer. I can't even say it. I'm too excited. And everyone's got to go find their dancing partner and dance like they're like in the 6th grade. Again, that would just be outstanding.
That's great.
Skating rink vibes. I love it.
Yeah.
Standing ovation.
Any other gimmicky or themed ones, y'all? Or
That's all I had, man. I feel like I should have held on to Meatloaf, guys. I should have held on to it for later in the episode.
it's we didn't really structure this great. We just were kind of rolling off the tongue. Actually, my wife will kill me if I don't rattle off one more here. And we've already got the Loggins verse going. Let's just do a Loggins verse themed Goose Miss or Halloween at one point and get Footloose in there.
Yeah.
Because we know how much the guys love doing Loggins. And again, more cheesy 80s. It would just be terrific.
It's the perfect era for them. It actually
Yeah.
it actually makes me want to take a deeper dive into like Billboard's lists from the 80s just to see what other obscure crap I can find or that I didn't even think about. Because this is obviously like a subsection of songs I would have already had in my library. But I'm sure there's 150 songs that I've heard at some point when I was a kid growing up that I don't have in my library. That unless you're listening to like an 80s channel on Sirius XM or, you know, a show about the 80s, you're not going to hear. Or watching a movie that has it in it. Beetlejuice, you know? Little Harry Belafonte jumping the line. Why not? Like, just throw it in there.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Oh my gosh, yeah. You hear some of these songs on like your shuffle or you're watching a movie and you're like, how have they not covered this yet? But also you got to remember they can't cover everything because so much would just work. You had also mentioned real quick songs you wouldn't want to hear the full thing of, and I do have one of in that vein, Jeremiah, and that would be "I'll Be There for You" by the Rembrandts. Yes. Just play the part from Friends.
Yes.
No one likes the whole song, dude.
Just tease it.
Like everyone shuts it off after the first minute.
Yep. Just a little bit in.
Just play the Friends part.
Jam around with it. Come back out. Go back on to what you were doing before.
Let everyone get their claps in, sing the chorus, and then bail into something else.
That what was it? They played I don't know if it was for the first time, but like Pumped Up Kicks worked really well in Yeti. And that's a whole other like again exercise of like active listening when you can not only like throw a song out and say I'd love to hear what these guys could do with it, but also know where to put it. And Mike, I think you had one. I tried to write it down. Was it Moving in Stereo on was it Big Modern?
Oh no, I had Money for Nothing coming out of Big Modern or going into Big Modern because I feel like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
sound so similar. At first, we were all kind of like wondering, like when Alex was at that show, he was telling me he's like, and when we were all in the parking lot tailgating, everyone was like wondering, like, is this like some kind of Dire Straits cover or something? It just they sound so similar to me. I just feel like they'd work really well as a segue in or out.
I see, I love that exercise of like being knowing where to put it too, or like sometimes
Yeah,
when you're at a live show and you're having that moment of like, I don't know what this song is yet. It doesn't feel like a Goose song. Could it be? Right? Insert name of song or name of
sure.
artist. And then sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But like the moment that everybody realizes that it is like
Yeah,
the moment where everyone's going crazy. You know, that's the drop, right? Like you wait for the drop.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah, the options are endless. Again, want to caveat that for everybody because you could segue stuff in, you could have teases. Oh my gosh, I could have made this playlist 200 songs long, and Mike was gonna strangle me. Once I showed him, I already had 40 like 2 days into the 2 week stretch we were
We're
prepping
gonna
for
do
this.
multiple installments of this most likely. It's too much to cover.
It is a big
Yeah,
topic.
the last little bit I wanted to knock out here because we would be remiss if we didn't throw in a few at least ideas for Goosemas here. Get some holiday themed songs. Did you pull any of those together, Mike? I only had a couple.
I did not get to any holiday picks. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all good. I wanted to make sure that I at least acknowledged the fact that Goosemas is their biggest tradition. So I thought they could cover This Christmas by Donny Hathaway. Great song, great guitar
Nice.
part, be great. Or Please Come Home for Christmas by Charles Brown, obviously more well known by the Eagles cover. Again, another one that I think Peter or Rick could crush singing. So be
I
fun.
I can come up with a couple examples on the fly.
Oh, go for it, Jeremiah. Yeah.
Trans-Siberian Orchestra, like everybody knows that one song that is right, like super commercial, but also like just like an open field for jamming, right? Because it basically is what it is.
Sarajevo.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of a funny like Christmas song that I randomly found on like I don't know if you know this, but Bob Dylan has a Christmas album. Is
Mm-hmm.
Must Be Santa, which maybe is more funny and less like oh this fits into Goose's aesthetic, but like just kind of a funny song. I could totally see them playing live. And then what was the third one? I had a third one. It's escaping me right now, but it'll come back to me.
I'm just
Um,
gonna throw off the top of my head, Father Christmas, give us some money. I don't know the title of that one,
nice.
particularly, but that one will be
Yeah.
great.
Oh
Commercial
yeah.
idea, good bucket, Mariah Carey. Bring it on. They
There
do
you
it.
go.
I
That would be
mean,
fun.
I
Gosh.
don't
I
want a
feel
lot
like
for
that
that would kill.
That could be
it
a
would
lot
be
of
so
fun.
divisive though.
It would.
There are people who would walk out.
It's true. And you might say the same about I got daughters and a wife that are all Taylor Swift fans too, but that's kind of what I said about Taylor Swift, where there's a risk reward there. Like huge Goose fan might be like, absolutely not, I'm out, or this is the time I go to the bathroom. But like 800,000 people might all of a sudden start paying attention to Goose that weren't before. So
Very well said.
Well said, yeah. It is a risk reward there, but ultimately I think it's music that the guys are passionate about, and that would make it great if they put the work into it to make it their own. So I don't think you can really go wrong if it's something that they enjoy working around.
I agree, man. I hate the notion of like liking a band less because they made a certain decision. It's like Dave Matthews goes electric, Metallica cuts their hair. It's like, well, neither of those are good reasons to start hating on a band, you know? Anyway,
Truly.
I digress.
Oh my god. So we wanted to close out the episode with some rapid fire, but first I wanted to give you the floor, Jeremiah, to just let everyone know kind of who you are, your relationship to Goose, like how you found Goose, and just rattle off some factoids about yourself, man.
Right on. Thank you. And also thank you again for having me. This is awesome. I was never big into jam bands growing up, beyond Dave Matthews. Which is a different kind of jam band than say like Goose, Fish, etc. But I have a lot of friends who are deep into Fish, and at some point I was kind of like, I don't know why I'm not a huge Fish fan. Like I don't know what it is I'm missing. Like I respect them for what they're doing, but I couldn't grab on to anything. And fast forward a number of years, and I'm hanging out with a group of guys that travel all over the place for Fish shows, and they were going to Goose shows as well, but not as much as Fish. And all of a sudden, I heard the notion that Goose was the next Fish, right? And I was like, oh, I mean, that's kind of a cool thing for them. Like, I wonder what they sound like. Do they sound just like Fish? And so when I found out, and this is kind of when I started maybe learning a little bit more about myself musically, it was, you know, I found out that they only had a couple albums, right? And or their volume of music wasn't even a fraction of what Fish's was, and it felt to me like I could digest it, right? Like where do I start coming into Fish now, right? Like I'm going back 40 years, trying to get caught back up to speed. But like I could take this one album, right? This one studio album, fall in love with a couple songs, and then find some of the EPs, and then listen to the live album, and then go see a show, have a great time. Um, you know, go into Nuggs's catalog and start watching things both live and shows that had already happened. And all of a sudden, there was something different to me there, and it made it really easy for me to kind of become a Goose fan and have and the notion of being able to like sit in your living room and watch a live show for 3 hours on a random Tuesday for whatever Nugs charges a month is a pretty cool thing that I thought was both a cool move by the
Yeah.
band, but also just like technology. Am I right? Um, so like as far as fandom there, like I'm still relatively new, but like very much in it for who they are, and um, also full-time job, started a craft brewery in the Chicago area. We've been around for over 10 years, like as an entity, but we've really only had a tap room for the last 2 years. So what that meant was we were establishing this brand and making beer and putting beer into local craft beer stores, but also spreading it around the country. And as we were doing this, the demand grew, but that traditional like, where do we go to your tap room didn't exist. So that started to build and build and build, which helped us outside of Illinois. Hop Butcher for the World is the name of the brewery. Um, and as that kind of became what it was, like distributors would reach out and help us get our beer into a lot of different places. And our love of music and how it pairs with beer played a part in driving where that beer would go. But it also played a part in kind of our own activities locally and in other states about where we were trying to go with it and who we were reaching out to, and the doors that beer can open up. And a lot of things that people are passionate about will open doors, but like you guys, right? Like it'd be like, hey, I like Goose, you like Goose. Do you guys like beer? If the answer is yes, can I send you some of mine? And then we're talking, right? And then the dialogue is open, and that makes it a lot easier because most people do like beer. So that can open doors, with bands as well, tour managers, actual band managers, band members. I got the chance to meet Peter a couple times and Sam, their tour manager. And this last time, Rick and Jeff were there as well, and a super cool experience when they come to Chicago, just to like drop off some beers for them and have them say what up, and then I get out of their hair. I think it was whatever. It wasn't the night that I was at the Salt Shed. They did a 3-show run, but Jeff brought a can of our hop water on stage with him, which and it wasn't a commercially done thing. It was just like I was watching them walk up on the stage, and I'm like, oh my god, he's got a can. Like I spotted it, and that was a super cool thing. So, um, sometimes
Sweet.
sometimes it's just dropping off beer and you never hear from 'em again, and there's no expectations, right? I don't do it to get free tickets or to ask for a backstage pass, but just the notion that like, hey, while you're in Chicago, if you do like beer or hop water or whatever, I'd love for you to drink. As a fan, I'd love for you to drink the good stuff and to just know that maybe you're having a beer after the show backstage. And so we don't do it for, everybody, because that would be an insane amount of beer and not everybody responds. But when they do, and it's a band you love, like I love Goose, it's really rad. So, um, that's fresh, hoppy beer, like doing the things that breweries do, trying to do what we do in, over 35 states, and we do monthly drops in the UK and the EU, with like an overseas partner. So given how small we are in terms of like the amount of beer we make, our footprint and the distance traveled is actually pretty insane, which has led to some really cool things like collabs with Smashing Pumpkins, working with Mike Ditka, down to like the boat tours. If you're coming to Chicago and you do like a tour on the lake or up and down the river, like we do a beer with those guys. Um, so yeah, I mean, I could diverge into a number of really cool stories that are music related. But in general, it's a fun industry to be in. It's exciting. It's a lot of hard work, but again, it's kind of like you have that mentality of like, do you make really great, really fresh beer, and who doesn't like beer? And of course, the answer is not everybody does, but there's that vibe you're after, right? Like if you feel good about what it is, and you're coming home from a long day of work, or you're going to a show, that is one of a couple things that people gravitate towards. And the cool connection between sports and music and beer and food, and like when you really wrap your head around how those interrelate, the possibilities feel endless, you know. So
Oh yeah. So how about we just get the movement started for you to make the next collab beer with Goose that they do for their show. They've been doing that quite a
they
bit.
have, they've done some with some brewery friends around the country. That opportunity was presented to us for this last tour. We couldn't make it work this time. Um, there's also like, I don't want to call it logistics, but there are things that work and things that don't, right? Like some of the breweries that were able to do collabs had like adjacent event space, or they had actual space in their brewery for live music. One of them was, related to, or not related to, or friends with. There was some business connection between basically like the pre-party and the show, whereas like our tap room, you could get in an Uber or a shuttle and go to the show after that, but there was no connection, in terms of like proximity. So there's am I
Right.
willing to do a Goose beer? Absolutely. I think my brain would explode with like beer names that were both cliche and not cliche, like really deep cuts of like, hey, if we call this, they're going to respect us even more as fans. But most recently, it's just kind of been that like satisfaction of pinging management, knowing when they're coming around, and then being like, hey, I'll drop it off on this day around this time. Who do I text? Here you go. Here's a couple cases, or like loading it into the green room in the back room of the salt shed, and just like having that satisfaction of being at that show, knowing that maybe they're trying it, or maybe the crew is too. Right? For us, it's not always about the artists or the band, right? It's like maybe they don't even drink. A lot of them don't. Maybe they do other things, but you know who typically does? Roadies and the crew, right? You're not always going to get the superstar
Oh yeah.
chugging a can of your beer on the stage, but sometimes it's the guitar tech or the bass tech, or and they're walking around, or you see a can of beer on the keyboard. I admit I always look at Peter's keyboard when he's in Chicago, because I've always hoped that he would just put one of our cans right down next to Luigi. But we'll see. Maybe next time.
You've got the great artwork on all the cans too by Dan Jetza,
Thank you.
like, and it matched the poster the one night of the Salt
Yeah,
Shed. He had done one of the posters for the 3 night stand, so that would have been a really cool like inception or artception, I should say.
he is one of the best decisions we made. The short story of this is when we started, we had 4 different artists from various parts of the country. Dan was the only one out of Chicago, and they were all great. But we looked like 4 different breweries when you lined our 4 beers up next to each other. And so when we made the decision to go with one, we asked him, would you consider doing all of our artwork? Thinking, hey, this guy did artwork for Surly. He did artwork for Three Floyd's Dark Lord Day. He doesn't have to say yes. Maybe he won't. We're an upstart brewery. We haven't really done anything yet. And he said yes, and he happened to be the Chicago guy as well. Also, the one we just admired from afar the most. Just a real, family guy, nice guy, like kind of lives very close to the brewery that we have now. But, that wasn't a factor back then because we didn't know. But by far and away, one of the best decisions we've ever made because now being a rotational brewery, we actually pump out quite a bit of artwork. So it worked out for him, but it worked out for us in a major way as well. But yeah, knowing the people that I typically check in with, I'm looking up here because I'm looking at that print you're talking about on my wall. You know, checking in with them to see if the band and crew want beer when they're in town. I said, hey, like we have a really cool artist, and I don't know what the process is or how you guys select artists to do, band posters, but our guy has done a lot of them. Like if you look at his website, he's done Alabama Shakes and Black Keys and Trey, and like the list of artists that he has done, show posters for is so much cooler than anything I ever expected to see or anything that you would imagine, being able to do as an artist. Um, and yeah, they reached out to him. I wasn't even involved beyond that, right? It was like a referral that happened. And then a couple months later, he was like, hey, thanks for the referral. I'm doing one of the 3 nights. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I was kind of hoping he was going to do all 3 nights and then you get like a series of 3 and then we'd use it for a beer. And like I said, that didn't work out. But even just having him do the one is it's a cool little overlap, between again like the beer and the music, and even if I didn't have the opportunity to give band and crew beer, still just being able to like step back and look at the wall and know that Dan did something for them and enjoy their shows is a cool thing. It's something that I get excited over.
That's just the coolest connection ever. Like, I didn't know that story before. I just asked you that. That's wild that you were the kind of the referral
Yeah,
point.
well, he really has done a lot of cool stuff. And if you haven't looked at his website, you should, because again, it's easy to root for good people, no, regardless of what their profession is. But yeah, I was kind of like, hey, you should do this, not thinking anything, but hoping that it would anyway, and that it did is awesome.
That's incredible, and I think I wasn't as familiar with his work before he started hopping on with Goose, and then getting to know you a little bit. But his art style is just incredible, and I think it fit the aesthetic of Chicago so well for that Goose show. For anyone that
Yeah.
wasn't familiar with his work,
I don't know how he does what he does. Like I know his style is called scratch board, right? So if you imagine like taking a piece of foam board, coloring the whole thing with Sharpie, letting it dry, and then scratching what you're trying to illustrate, um, it's basically what he does. That's how he starts, and then he goes in on the back end and is able to color things. It's a vague nod, and maybe very few people know this, but it's kind of like an inside nod. And I didn't know he was doing this. This is actually a really fun story. Sorry if we're running long, but what he did for that Goose print for that show is a collab between something that he's done for the brewery and a completely new idea that he did for the band. We have a beer called Herbs and Horto, which is Chicago's motto for city in a garden. And on that beer, if you were to look up the artwork for that beer, you'll see it's basically like the city in a potted plant, which he redrew. So it's not like he didn't like repurpose it, but you see a city building with kind of a garden like overgrowing the flower potted plant and other plants. Um, and he knew at that point that I was a huge fan, and he also knew that we weren't doing the beer collab with Goose, because it didn't work out. So he wouldn't tell me anything. He wouldn't show it to me because I was like, "How about some progress shots? Like, just snap me some pictures of what you're doing. I want to see it." Because we get that, right? When we ask him to do artwork for beer,
yeah,
sometimes we're like, creative freedom, go. Here's the name, do whatever you want to do. And other times we're like, hey, I want you to be a little more literal with this, right? Like maybe for Galaxy Bowl, we are looking for like a bowling robot, right, with like a galaxy behind him or whatever. Um, so I feel spoiled in that way that like he'll usually give us at least a sneak peek. But I said, okay, how about just the corner? And he literally sent me a picture of just blank paper, like the corner of a blank, like the paper that he prints on. So it was really cool to see that unveiled because I didn't expect it to be as awesome as it was. Like he just blows us away time after time. And secondly, that he went the extra mile to kind of take something we've done together and like goosify it, if you will. So proud moment to put that one on my wall.
I was gonna say I love that story, and that's also the perfect segue point for us to geek about Goose with these rapid fire questions for you, Jeremiah. So, how about we just quick rattle off 1-2 word answers? Favorite Goose song?
Bob Don / undecided. But Dawn is up there. I think those are my interchangeables. Like it'll switch between Dawn and Bob Don.
So you just like the Dawn sound.
I guess I do. I don't know.
Bob Dawn.
I didn't even know it was Bob Don when I decided it was my favorite song because it was still undecided in that moment. And I was like, I don't understand why they don't play this. And then I was randomly listening to a show and I'm like, this is undecided. But then I couldn't find it anywhere because they had named it Bob Don. I was like, I don't even know what the hell that song is. It just comes after SOS. Is it a real song? But yeah, no, those two songs kill it for me.
Awesome.
And then favorite musician or band?
Yeah. Well, it's Goose now for sure. I'd say before that, was Soul Coughing when I was growing up, and somewhere in between there, Jimmy Buffett.
Okay. A lot of variety there.
Yeah. No, I've traveled the musical world a little bit in the last 44 years.
I love that. Parrot heads for life.
Amazing. I'm so sad he's not around anymore. But there is and I know this is supposed to be rapid fire, but the musical documentary Under the Volcano, you guys got to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a
Hell
Jimmy
yeah.
Buffett thing. He is part of it, but if you haven't watched it, I mean, you mentioned Dire Straits, and I was like, Under the Volcano. Great music documentary.
It truly is.
So how about your favorite concert venue, whether it's in Chicago or not?
Oh, Chud,
Nice.
easy. It's the newest, and that's not why I love it. Yeah, no, guys, it's amazing. It is everything that like you don't even think you need. And it's not just the skyline, it's the way it sounds, it's the way everything is laid out, it's the food, it's the beer, it's the size, it's the bands they get. It's the bomb.
All right, I'm moving up Chicago on my priority list this fall if we got shows there.
Do it. I will meet you there.
What's your big Chase song if you have one? Anything you haven't caught yet?
Oh, I'm not prepared for this one. You know what? I mean, I haven't seen Bob Don live.
Oh, okay.
I would love. I know. I would love to.
Oh my
They've
gosh.
played a lot of my top 17 or whatever the heck that list is, but I have not caught Bob Don yet. They did. They went slow ready into Factory
All
Fiction
right.
at the end of the show I was at, and I damn near lost my mind because Factory Fiction is maybe 3 on my list.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen Slow Ready, but yeah, never Bob Don.
Oh yeah. And that was the Duel of the Fates one, right?
Exactly.
Oh, fantastic. What's the first album you ever bought, if you remember?
First Goose or first album of any time?
Any type when you were a young lad.
Oh, man. It might have been Ride the Lightning by Metallica.
Sick.
It was like Ride the Lightning and the Jurassic Park soundtrack. I was a metalhead, but also a nerd.
I love it.
That is so perfect, especially for me and Alex. That's like right up our alley. What's a band or artist that's on your bucket list?
I mean, God, I'd love to see Jimmy Buffett again, and I can't because he's dead. I've seen some really, really good shows. I'm trying to think of who I haven't seen yet that I would love to. Oh man, you guys got me. You stumped the Schwab. I'm not a Schwab, but
Maybe you've checked everything off the list.
I definitely haven't. I mean, like there's obviously something to love about live music, and I'd go see, and a lot of the times now it's about seeing some of the bands that I wish I had seen when I was 15. I had never seen
Yeah.
Cake, and Cake came to the Salt Shed like fall of 23, I think it was, and we went, and it was that, I mean, that was probably the most recent one. Like I wanted to see Cake, and I finally got to see him. Um, because it was, the crowd was awesome, but it was eclectic, and they were like giving away house plants on the stage, and then they like follow up with them and ask people to tag them. So maybe a lame way to answer that, but like Cake was definitely on that list before I saw him, more recently.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
I'm gonna leave it at
Cake.
that, but I am gonna come back to you because I owe you a real genuine answer to that one about who I have not yet seen.
Cake probably should have
That
been
works.
on the list of covers we'd like to see, honestly, and like get some The Distance going or something. Have
I
Cotter
agree.
sing that or something.
I agree.
Yeah, Cotter or Trevor would need to sing that, but I'd be on board.
All right, so let's get silly here. Would you rather fight one elephant-sized goose or 50 goose-sized elephants?
50 goose-sized elephants. Don't know why. I have no explanation.
It's still too easy, Mike. Everyone always picks that side, and we keep upping the number.
I think you just need to escalate beyond reason, and it needs to be like 10,000. Give these
I feel like
people
it's
no
because
choice.
we all grew up watching like either playing fighting games like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and we just feel like we could do karate and kick 3 at once. That's probably what it is.
Get a little Hadouken off. Yeah,
Exactly.
That is
ain't hard
probably
enough.
facts.
Speaking of that, go see Minecraft movie. It's hilarious. There's a little of that in it.
Oh, really?
We actually just went with
Okay.
my stepdaughter and our nephew. He's like grew up on that, and he's like a grown man now, and he really wanted to go with us. So we went and took him, and it was actually really funny.
It was hilarious. And I don't mean to segue from it, from what we were talking about, but I thought it was special to go while it was new enough that you got those hardcore Minecraft fans making noise in the theater. They weren't disruptive, but like they were hooting and hollering at all the right spots, and like the deep cuts in the movie that were nods to huge Minecraft fans or things that a casual fan would even know. Was awesome. I would have never known that if I was in the theater myself. So anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, we're on a tangent, but I will
Yes,
agree with
sorry.
you. It reminded me of going to the Rocky Horror Picture Show or something, like for these kids. Like it was like rowdy, but like appropriate rowdy, and I knew none of the references. I literally never played that game. Anyway,
Same.
let's get back on track. Sorry,
Yes,
Mike.
sorry.
Oh, you're good. At a show, would you rather be stuck next to someone who sings all the lyrics wrong or someone who accidentally slaps you with flailing arms every few minutes? I've experienced both of those.
The former for sure. I think
Yeah, I agree.
2 of my favorite shows from last year that weren't Goose, the group we were with was like screaming every song, or sorry, every word to every song, and you're like, hell yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So last funny question. Which member of Goose would you trust the most to babysit your kids, and which one would you trust the least?
I would trust Peter the most. I would trust Cotter the least, I think.
Everyone
gonna
gravitates
say-
to those too.
I was gonna say Trevor, but I bet Trevor. I bet he's a big teddy bear. He just looks intimidating because he's always got those glasses on.
That's probably
no
fair.
doubt.
Peter just looks like a guy you can trust, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So that about wraps up the rapid fire, but just wanted to give you one last moment to like plug Hot Butcher or any of your pages or whatever you want to plug real quick.
Yeah, right on. Thank you guys so much for having me. This has been a blast. Like I said, when you asked me to be on the show, I'm both honored and humbled. I don't take these kind of invites for granted. It's always fun to kind of geek out with other super fans of whether it's beer or music or, you know, pick the topic. So, and it's fun to listen to you guys on your podcast without me being on it, but it's super cool to be on it as well. If you haven't checked out Hop Butcher, like you guys were, the artwork is kick-ass, hopbutcher.com, but we probably distribute in your state, but obviously if you're in Chicago, come see us at the Tap Room in downtown Chicago, just north of the city. We focus on hoppy, super fresh beer, and we try to keep it new and fresh and exciting. So we're constantly releasing an absolute churn of beers every week. Come see us. Good stuff.
And Mike and I can attest to that. We've gotten to try a few thanks to you, Jeremiah, and the artwork's outstanding, and y'all are so creative with the different flavors you're putting out there. And I follow y'all, and I'm like, how are they making this much different beer? Like, it's something new, I feel like, every 2 days.
It is 2 to 6 beers a week, man. You gotta keep it pumping, keep people interested. But there's so many different hops, there's so many different ingredients, there's so many new hop technologies that it makes our life a little easier when it's delicious stuff to and fun, right? Like I said, who doesn't love beer? I know there are people that don't love beer, but who doesn't love beer? And you try it, and sometimes it knocks it out of the park, and other times it's good, you know, but it doesn't like introduce you to something new. So we got a lot to get to still.
Hell yeah. Lots to get to, and this was an absolute pleasure to have you on. We're going to have to do it again next time we recap some covers because there's so much room to go. So thanks, everybody, for listening. This was an absolute blast with Jeremiah. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't be shy to send us your suggestions for covers you'd want to hear. You can email us slowreadypod@gmail.com or just message us on the socials. I'm sure we'll have some posts up this week, too, where you can chime in. Jeremiah, thanks again. And thank you all for listening. Take care.
Thanks, guys.